This is No Free Bases, and today we're here to talk about payroll. With spring training well underway and players signing contracts like money grows on trees, you know Major League Baseball and the players have agreed to a new CBA. Most people will tell you this CBA was a huge win for the players. The two biggest areas of concern were increasing luxury tax and increasing salaries for younger players. However, could there have been a better deal? Case in point, salaries for young stars in the NFL and the NBA far exceed young major leaguers. And while this deal gets them closer, it doesn't quite close that gap all the way. The best example of this is surely Vlad Guerrero Jr. In just his third year in the league, Vladdy hit 48 home runs, had an average of over 300, on base over 400, and slugged over 600, earning him an OPS plus of 169, well above league average. Why is this important? Because he did all this while earning just over $600,000, even though Fangraphs estimates that his free market value is over $50 million, 53.5 to be exact. With this in mind, the big question looming is, will teams actually spend more money in this new system? After all, the new system isn't all that different. We've had luxury tax for a long time now. While this past offseason may have set a record for the most money ever spent in a single free agency, we also saw a team spend $0, and there are still 8 teams on pace to spend under $100 million on payroll next year. But the worst part is that nothing is forcing these teams to spend more money if they don't want to. So again, could there be another way to actually get players even more money and force lesser teams to spend money and maybe even be more competitive? But we'll come back to this in a little bit. First, let's look at what each team's salary was in 2021 according to Forbes. We can see the Dodgers were the leaders in the clubhouse at $262 million, followed not so closely behind by the Pirates, who were just north of $50 million. Add up all of these and you end up at a number of $4,050,986,036. So not bad for a few months of adults playing a kid's game. However, this total also marks the 4th season since the last CBA that salaries have actually decreased. And in a market that's supposedly flooded with cash, players seem to be rightfully questioning why more of it isn't going into their pockets. One of their biggest gripes with the old CBA is that luxury tax started acting like a hard cap instead of its intended use, which was to curb excessive spending from teams like the Yankees when it was implemented. And as we see from the previous luxury tax of $214 million, there may be some merit to this argument. But rather than simply raising the tax threshold, there may be another way to increase spending. What if baseball simply steered into the skid of this hard cap? Now I know players will never agree to this because they think Steve Cohen is going to make his payroll look like this. But Steve Cohen is only one man, and he can only pay 26 players. And we're trying to make things better for all 780 players, even though Steve Cohen could probably afford all 780 if he really wanted to. So let's talk about this taboo word of salary cap. What would it actually be, and how would it work for the players? Luckily for us, Major League Baseball actually offered a deal with salary cap in it that we can use for this exercise. So before the outrageous groans of disapproval begin, the hidden glory of a salary cap is that it comes with a salary floor. Floor being the key word here, meaning that teams have to spend at least that much on payroll. Obviously, in a real world situation, these numbers would get negotiated a little bit, but here are the numbers for now. The league offered a hard cap of $180 million, which is a far cry from the current luxury tax of $230. However, the important thing is that it also offered a floor of $100 million. So let's take a look and see what would happen here. Over on the high end, you get big spenders. There were 8 teams over that $180 million number. Obviously, Dodgers would be most handcuffed by this, as they would have to come all the way down to that number, almost $80 million off their payroll. In total, the players would actually lose $160 million in this situation, and we can quickly see why players are so adamant about not having a hard cap. However, as mentioned, a salary cap also means a salary floor. And this is where things get interesting. If we look on the lower end and we see that $100 million floor, as we mentioned, there were 10 teams that fell short of that mark, and some of them are well below it. As we bring everybody up to the floor threshold, we see some of these would almost double their payroll. And if you total up all these numbers, it actually brings a gain of $235 million back to the players. So combine that with the $160 million they lost, and they net out at a $75 million gain back in their pocket. Not bad for an alternate universe possibility, if you ask me. Not to mention, if players really want the league to be more competitive, forcing teams to add payroll might be the best way of achieving that. Just imagine a world where the Orioles, Pirates, or even Royals weren't eliminated from the playoffs during spring training. With that said, however, would the system work perfectly? No. Are players looking for bigger gains than $75 million? Probably. Will we ever see this implemented? Probably not, at least not in the near future. But wouldn't it be cool to see the Rays forced to spend another $20 million? And what if they decided to spend that on all their young players? And wouldn't it be cool to see franchises actually pay to keep their favorite players? I'm looking at you again, Rays, but I'm not here to single anybody out.